Whether you have an employment, criminal, family, corporate, or personal injury matter, legal issues can be puzzling. The lawyers at Devry Smith Frank make all the pieces fit together.
Ford, as I mentioned, Ford, the automaker is not pleased with Ford, the drug-using mayor of Toronto, using their logo and their brand to promote himself. To talk about this angle of the story is Corey Schneider, intellectual property lawyer from Devry Smith Frank, and is with us now. Good afternoon, Corey. How are you today?
Hi, Scott. I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Good. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. I guess it's pretty obvious why any company or any brand probably doesn't want to be associated with this man at this point. What are the rights? What are everybody's rights here? First of all, how did he start to use the Ford logo? I understand that they didn't have the rights for it for a while. How does that all work?
Well, the Ford logo is a registered trademark of Ford Motor Company. Having a registered trademark means that the owner of the trademark, Ford Motor Company, is the only one who has the right to use that logo in association with certain goods and services. Now, there's a distinction between a copyright and a trademark. Trademark is very specific to goods and services that they sell. Now, I did check on the registration with the Copyright Office, with the Trademark Office, and Ford actually has registered the trademark in association with T-shirts. So my understanding is that the fuss right now is regarding T-shirts that are being sold by someone claiming to be from the Ford Nation.
There was some mention the other day that they had that there was a chance that he could use it, and then something changed, or that they purchased back the rights, or they let it go because during the recession they needed money. Do you know anything about that? So apparently the logo was available, and then it wasn't.
Oh, I don't know the ownership of the logo. I don't. I think the issue there was that the Ford Motor Company had let a lot of its assets go or be sold to another party.
Right.
But that wouldn't necessarily mean that anyone else could use them. They were still, the trademarks remained registered. It's just the issue of who owned them at the time.
So what what happens in this case? Do you issue a warning, and if you issue a warning and they have so much time to comply, how does this all work once?
Well, I mean, the Ford Motor Company has a few. It's not going to be an easy thing for them to do. They certainly have the resources to do it. First of all, they'd have to find out who was actually selling these trademarks. I don't know that there's any actual entity, legal entity known as the Ford Nation. So it's an individual who was manufacturing and selling these T-shirts that they would have to go after. Once they found that person, generally they would issue them a letter demanding that they cease selling these T-shirts, possibly asking for damages, and if they didn't comply, threatening to file a claim against them in federal court.
Could Ford stop Rob Ford from wearing one of those Ford Nation shirts? Like, obviously, you know, they can't sell them anymore, and perhaps they'd stop that. But what if he's seen photographed in one of these in public? Would they have any recourse?
That's a good question. I think that would apply to anything. You mentioned just a minute ago about him wearing the Argos shirts. I think that the same would apply there as well. Could anybody stop any public figure that they don't like from wearing their slogan? I don't think there's any precedent for that. So I think they'd have a very hard time preventing him from wearing a T-shirt with their slogan on it.
What if it was one that had been altered, like a Ford Nation shirt? If he's wearing that in public and he's photographed and that's on the news or what have you, would Ford have any recourse for that?
Possibly. The trademark infringement has to, in order for a party to prove trademark infringement, they have to show that there is a confusion as to the source of the goods. So, as long as it's only the party who's selling the goods or making them available to the public that would be at risk there. However, there is also a provision in the Trademark Act that prevents another party from depreciating the goodwill of the owner of a trademark. there may be an argument there that by doing so he would be depreciating their goodwill. Again, that's something that I don't believe there's any precedent for such a case as this. I don't think there's any precedent for anything like this in any
on many different angles.
Many angles, right.
Do you think this is depreciating the goodwill of that brand by having him associated with it, for Ford, for example?
I think that's up for Ford to determine. It's not really something I can...
But if you were representing Ford, would you say that that's doing damage to their brand? Having him wearing a Ford Nation shirt in public.
Yeah, I mean, what would... again, there's really no precedent for that in these circumstances. I think they have a duty to protect their brand name. They spent a lot of money to build up their portfolio of trademarks and in marketing and advertising and building up their goodwill. So if they feel that there's a risk there of depreciation of their goodwill, it's their duty to enforce that.